Okay, it's 4 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Wala pa masyadong nanonood, so I guess we can wait a bit. Okay. If there's someone there watching, please say hi so that I know that there's someone there. Hello, JR. Hi, Walsh. Got stuck at D. Okay, that's good. It means you will learn something from this stream. Okay. Sometimes, solving all the problems is not the best thing kasi it means wala ka nang masyadong matututunan. Okay. If you didn't solve all the problems or you only solved a few, you can look at it as it's a good thing because it means you have lots of room to grow and you will learn lots of things. Okay, kamusta? How did you guys find the problem set? Ayos ba yung theme natin this week? Ayos ba? Gets niyo ba yung reference? I don't know if it's popular enough that everyone gets it. Okay, pag hindi nyo gets yung reference, it's fine. Pag gets nyo yung reference, hindi nyo pa napapanood, well, wag na lang kasi hindi naman talaga bagay yun sa inyo. It's not a show for kids. Uh, so, or you can watch it with your parents, but never mind actually. Kung may time kayo at may 2 hours kayo, manood na lang kayo ng past Abakoda live stream kung may na-miss kayo. Never mind, don't watch the show. It's not, yeah. I won't even recommend it for adults. Okay, some people like it, so it's up to them. But yeah, okay. I was talking about the reference in the problems, but if you don't get it, never mind. It's not important. Okay, so if this is your first time seeing me, I'm gonna introduce myself again, just so you know. So my name's Vernon. I'm not the one who prepared the contest this week. Um, I'm Vern Goods in Code Forces. I was the one who prepared round zero and round one. So I live streamed here a few weeks ago. And now I'm live streaming for Peyton, who prepared this week's contest. And hopefully you guys had fun. Uh, Peyton says he's proud of the fun in the problem statement. Uh, I don't know. It's up to you guys. Sabihin niyo sa Discord kung nakakatawa yung joke niya o hindi. Uh, anyway, so yeah, I'm Vernon. Vern Goodson Code Forces. Um, I coach the Ateneo programming teams. So Ateneo has these teams who join contests like these, and I coach them. And I'm also one of the organizers of NoipPH. Okay, so that's a short introduction for those who don't know me yet. Okay, so I guess we can start. It's 4:05. Um, Everyone solved problem A anyway, so I probably don't need to discuss A that much. But essentially, okay, let's move to uh, here. Okay, give me one moment. There we go. Okay, so yung setup for all four problems is the same. Uh, you essentially have two rows of numbers, like like so. For example, like this. And you're supposed to walk from left to right. You start here, and then you end here. And you're supposed to walk from left to right. Pero each problem, A, B, K, D, has some differences. The difference is how many times are you allowed to jump from one square, from one row to the other. Okay, so yung problem A, pinaka-simple. Problem A, you're not allowed to switch rows at all. So, ano ibig sabihin nun if you're not allowed to switch rows? Well, there's only two possibilities. It means you either walk from the left, from here to here, in the top row, or you walk from here to here, in the bottom row. And the score you get is the numbers you step on. So that means if you walk on the top row, it's just the sum of these guys. If you walk on the bottom row, it's the sum of these guys. And you want to maximize your score, and there are only two options. So you just take the sum of these two, and then you get the maximum of them. Okay, so paano yun? Gawin sa code. Let's switch to the code. Okay, so first line of input, you have N and K. May K dyan for decoration. I'll explain why later. Bakit may K dyan. Hindi naman importante yung K sa problem nito. Pero wala lang. Hindi naman kailangan lagi na lahat ng data na binabasa nyo importante for the problem. Sometimes you can have some data that's useless, and that's not weird. That happens in normal life, right? There's some data you get, but it's not really important for the work you have to do. So you just throw it away. But anyway, so the first line says you have two integers. Most people probably already know this who joined the contest because you guys solved it. But how do you read space-separated integers in Python? So C++, if you're a C++ programmer, you don't have to think about this because in C++, you can read one number at a time. But in Python, how do you do it? Well, as a Python, if you do input, you get the entire line. And there's a built-in function in Python called split. And what does split do? It just creates a string with the words separated by spaces. So for example, let's try to run this. It's taking a while. Okay, let's reload it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so for example, if I say hello world, then I'm just gonna get an array or a list of all the words separated by spaces, right? So what can I do? If I want to read a list of integers, if I say, let's say 501, 0, let's say, this is gonna read the individual numbers as strings, but I want them to be integers. So what do I do? Okay. Well, there are several ways. Probably yung pinakasimple, since you know there are only two numbers in this line, you can just do nk is something like this. Tapos n is int nk0, and then k is int nk1. This works, but it's kind of messy, and you have to read a line of numbers afterwards anyway. So meron kang first row, di ba? Top row, tapos bottom row. And then you don't know in advance. You can't write something like this for the next two lines because there's a lot of numbers in those lines, right? So let's learn what's the nicest way to read a list of integers in Python. Okay, if you haven't seen this before, this might look strange, but Python has this special syntax where you can say you can say this. Okay, what does it do? This is called a list comprehension in Python, and in general, it looks like this: some expression for variable in container. So what will it do? It will look through all the items in the container one by one, and then give a name variable to each item in that container one by one. And then you can use this variable in this expression. It will produce the value of this expression. Tapos, it will collect all the results in a list. Okay, so let's see an example. So pag sinabi kong nk is equal to int x for x in input.split. And then let me print nk, just so you see what happens. Okay, so that's what happens. So input.split will get 500 and 0 as strings. And then what do? I say, for each string in that list, I convert it to an integer. Okay, so just to be extra clear, this is exactly the same. If I do this is exactly the same as saying nk is just input.split. right? So I just take for every x in this input.split, do something to it, and then store the results in a new list, okay, which I'm calling nk. Okay, and the nice thing about this is this works regardless of how many numbers there are in your line. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, it will just work. Okay. Let's see if there are questions. Okay, seems like none so far. So if I'm going too fast, you 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 can stop me. You can ask questions. I will check from time to time. Okay. Okay. If you haven't seen this before, just for those who haven't seen it before, if I do expression for variable in container, this is actually exactly the same as make a new list, let's say temporary, and then for variable in container, temporary dot pushback expression, and then return temporary. So behind the scenes, this is the equivalent code that gets run when you do something like this. Okay, more or less. Sige, what else is nice in Python? Well, in Python, actually, if you have a list of some things on the right side, you can assign the individual elements of that list to variables on the left side. What do I mean? For example, instead of saying nk, this is just one list. So I guess everyone understands what this means if I say put this entire list in this variable. But some people, baka hindi nyo pa nakita to, you can also do this. You can say, okay, split this list into several variables, and then the first guy in the list goes to this variable, the second guy in the list goes to this variable. And you can actually do this for more variables. Okay? But this only works if you know in advance that the list has an exact size. Okay, so let me show you how that works. If I say nk is, you do that input split thing, and if I run that, you'll see that I get 3, 5. Okay, just to make it very clear that separate na talaga sila. Okay, I can print them on different lines, and you'll see that, yeah, that's indeed what it does. Okay, and mag-error yan pag hindi exactly 2 yung laman ng list. Like if I say 3, 5, 8, 3, 5, 7, let's say. Okay, mag-error siya. It says too many values to unpack. So this is called unpacking in Python. You're unpacking the list into some variables. So you expected to kasi dalawa lang yun nandito, but there are 3 elements in this list, so it doesn't work. And similarly, kung ano yan, if you only put 1, it's gonna say not enough values to unpack. Okay, so that's very helpful for those of you who are programming in Python. This is very helpful for reading lines of space-separated numbers, which you're gonna be doing a lot if you join these kinds of contests. So might as well learn how to do it the nice way, right? So let's go to the actual problem. Okay, so let's say top row, and then bottom row. And then what do I want? Well, I just want the maximum of the sum of the top row or the sum of the bottom row. Okay? And that's it. That's how you solve problem A. Okay, hindi ko na i-rerun to save time. But you guys get the idea. Okay. And of course, if you didn't know there was a sum function built in Python, well, now you do. And this will make your life easier. But even if you don't, it's not so hard to write a sum function anyway. This is one of the exercises you learn when you learn about lists and loops in your programming languages, right? Okay, why do I show this? Kasi may nakita akong code na may mga nakita akong submission sa contest, and they were doing something like this. Top row is input.split, bottom row is input.split, and then sa baba tsaka nila ginagawa yung like for x in top row, let's say, tapos may int x dyan, tapos like someone, something like that, which is fine, it works. Okay. So my question, sir, is it pushback or append? Right. Okay, so for Python, it's append. Yeah, but it's basically the same thing. It's pushback in C++, it's append in Python. So sorry about that. Pero it's append in Python. Okay, but the idea is the same. You go through each element in the list and then evaluate the expression and put them at the back of the list. Okay? So let's go to problem B. Okay, I showed this because I want you guys to learn how to cleanly read input. Kasi it sometimes matters. Like in problem B, it mattered for some people. It's very nice if you can just forget about the fact na may lines of strings ka dyan sa input. You forget about that fact because this problem has nothing to do about strings. It's all about lists of integers. Tapos, kalimutan mo na strings yan originally. Integers na lang sila. And then down here, you can simplify your code. You don't have to, wag mo ihalo yung int something dyan kasi nakakagulo yan. Just treat them as integers and then think about them as integers. Your life will be much simpler. And actually, in problem B, it's gonna be, some people got trapped by this. So let's go to problem B now. Okay, so yung scenario sa problem B is the same, except now you're allowed to like move between the top row and the bottom row as many times as you want. Okay, so you can have paths like these or something else, pwedeng ganyan, tapos baba, tapos derecho, 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 and so on. Okay, effectively, if you think about it, what does that mean? Effectively, that means, well, you're basically allowed to choose, are you going to step on the top cell or the bottom cell at a current position? And then you can make that choice independently of the other choices. So dito ulit, you can choose taas ba o baba, and then here, top or bottom, top or bottom, top or bottom. And of course, since you want to maximize the score, it's very simple, right? You just take the maximum of the top or the bottom at the current position, and then you move your position from 0 to n-1. Something to take care about, to take note about in this problem is, yeah, what I was saying earlier. If you're not careful and you read your input as strings, kunyari ganyan. Okay, okay, let's figure out ano ba yung gagawin natin, right? For every position from 0 to n minus 1, okay, actually you don't need a 0. What do I want? Um, this is my answer, right? Initially 0. I want to add something to the answer. And what do I add? I want to add the maximum of top row position or bottom row position. Okay, and actually if you didn't know there was a max function, maybe you would write it like this. If top row position is greater than bottom row position, then you take the top row. Right? Otherwise, you take the bottom row. And then you print the answer. Okay, pero may issue yan kasi yung input dito ay strings. So, before adding it to answer, you have to convert it to an integer. Okay, it seems good, right? Seems right. Why don't we test it? Try natin sa actual sample input. So let me take the sample input and run it. Oops. That's not what I want to do. Okay, mukhang tama siya, di ba? It works. Okay, but look at this code carefully. Oh, I'm not showing the code. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, here's the code. So what did I do? Since I don't know about int.split, the list comprehension thing yet before I joined this contest, what did I do? I just did input.split so that I get n and k as strings. Tapos I convert it to integers here. And then I don't bother converting the top row and bottom row immediately to ints. I put that off for later. Ihalo ko yung int logic thing, yung conversion to int with the logic of my program. Okay, and you'll see that this is what I came up with. Hopefully it makes sense, right? If the top guy is bigger than the bottom guy, then I add to the answer top guy. Otherwise, I add the bottom guy. But since these guys are strings, what do? I have to convert it to integers first before adding. Kasi otherwise, magta-type error yan, diba? I can't add numbers and strings. Or at least, it's not what I want to do. Okay. I don't want to auto-convert the number to a string and then concatenate the string. I want to do numerical addition. So I convert it to int, operating with me. So if it's getting broken, stream's getting broken, sorry. Okay. Anyway. Sige, so, ayun. There's something wrong with this code, actually. There's a very insidious bug in this code. May very sneaky bug yung code na to. Can someone tell me what's wrong with this code? Okay. Can someone tell me what's wrong with this code? The comparison, yes, from Naomi. The comparison is wrong. Bakit? What's happening here? What do you really want to compare? You want to compare the numerical value of the top guy and the bottom guy. Okay, but what is this thing doing here? It's comparing the string value of the top guy and the bottom guy. So it's comparing them in alphabetical order. And alphabetical order is not necessarily the same as numerical order. So let me show you a case where that breaks. Let's say n is 1, tapos 999 pa rin. Tapos, what do I put at the top? I put, let's say, 42. Tapos, yung baba, sabihin natin 5. Ano yung output? 5. Bakit 5 yung output? Because 5 is greater than 42. If you look at them as strings. Kasi anong mangyayari, compare niya yung 5 tsaka yung 4. Oh, 5 is bigger than 4. So 5 actually comes after 42 in alphabetical order. But that's not what you want to do in this problem. What you want to do is compare the numerical value 42 with 5. Okay, so if you write this as using the max function, it becomes more obvious what's wrong, right? Max. This is really the logic you're saying. Pero mali yan, because you're taking the integer of the maximum of the string representations. What you want is the maximum of the integer representations. Okay? So yan yung tama. And that's why some people got wrong on this problem. Okay? But anyway, my tip is you can avoid this garbage completely if you just convert all your data at the very start so that you don't have to worry about it anymore. Hindi maghahalo yung data conversion dun sa logic ng problem. Right? So convert everyone to integers here, and then down here, just treat them as numbers. Right? So let me do that. Right, ganyan. Okay, and then I won't do the rest. You can imagine how to do it. And then down here, numbers na lang. Okay? And even if you don't know how to do, you don't memorize how to do this list comprehension thing, okay lang, you can practice it later. Pero even if you don't know it and you can't remember how to do it, you can always do the regular, just do a for loop, right? For x in top row. You can just do the regular for loop. Okay. Basta the point is, convert mo na lahat ng data sa taas para hindi maghalo-halo yung logic and you don't get confused and you don't get errors like this. Okay, so the idea is, yeah, separate the steps of your solution cleanly. Okay, so let's go now to problem C. Problem K, I mean. Walang problem C. Let's get a new page. Okay, so yung problem K, ganun pa rin. You have two rows. Ganun pa rin yung setup. But this time, iba na yung rules. Ano yung rule? You can change sides at most once.